Hello and welcome everyone to the Q&A session for our upcoming video course, Courting the Dream, the 7-week journey to cultivate belonging and rekindle magic through the sacred practice of dream work. I'm Anne Patricio, and I'm just so happy to be here. I'm the course manager for this course, as well as the host for today's Q&A conversation, where we'll be taking your questions for Toko-pa Turner as we address your questions about her upcoming course, Courting the Dream, which begins Thursday, January the 3rd at 12 noon Pacific. And now I'll explain how you can participate in this course, even if you can't attend live calls. But first, I want to introduce our guest. Toko-pa Turner is an author, teacher, dream worker, blends the mystical tradition of Sufism in which she was raised with a Jungian approach to dream work. And she founded the Dream School in 2001, which has graduated many, many students. And sometimes she's called the midwife of the psyche. Toko-pa's work focuses on restoring the feminine, reconciling paradox, and facilitating grief and ritual practices. I've so enjoyed getting to know Toko-pa as this gentle and inspiring soul that she is, and I'm really grateful that she's sharing her gifts with us on this upcoming course. Now, in just a few minutes, we'll be opening up for your questions for Toko-pa, and you can engage with her. But first, I want to welcome her to say a few words. Welcome, Toko-pa. So great to have you here today.
Hi, thank you so much, Anne, and hi out there to all of our listeners. I'm so excited to be gathering with you today. In a way, it's a very propitious time to gather because we're on the eve of the winter solstice here in the Northern Hemisphere, which is a powerful time. It's a threshold time, and particularly apt for turning inward and working with the dreams. But I wanted to say a few words before we begin because I think in our culture, this season is really treated quite differently than the rest of the natural world in the sense that it's one of the busiest and most extroverted times of year as we prepare for holidays and prepare to receive guests. And actually, there's a huge amount of stress and anxiety that tends to accompany this season for many different reasons. And so I wanted to acknowledge that and maybe just say a few words about the relationship between giving and receiving. So, we have this old adage that we hear all the time that it's better to give than to receive. But I always sort of take issue with this way of thinking because giving and receiving are interdependent acts. There's no such thing as a one-sided generosity. Similar to when a bee pollinates a flower, that there is a giving and receiving that has to happen in that moment for both parties. And the same is true of us. And yet, in our culture, with its emphasis on materialism, on productivity, on action, being active, something is lost in that reciprocity. And so, this ability to receive is really, I think of it like a muscle. And that when we focus so much on the other half of that exchange, on the giving and doing and producing and keep going, that the receiving muscle can actually atrophy. And what this looks like is the inability in our relationships to receive goodness. It looks like the inability to receive support from the larger ecosystem all around us. And so, in a way, we have forgotten how to receive. So I wanted to just read to you a brief passage from my book, Belonging. Um, this is a very dog-eared copy, as you can see, lots of little notes in here. But I thought this passage would be a really good meditation for all of us who are struggling to remember how to receive. Too often, we fall into the misguided belief that the outside world is our source of vitality. We wait for its cues and its permissions and forget to honor, petition, and receive from the well within. Unconsciously, we're terrified to turn away from the world because we think we're putting our heads in the sand or that we'll lose everything if we don't keep the pace. But the truth is that there's a different rhythm trying to temper us from within. If we shift our responsiveness from the outer to the inner world, allowing for a periodic ebbing of our external effectiveness, we come to see that it's in service to a more harmonious way with our own bodies and with the greater earth. To hear the rhythm of your indigenous song, to fall in step with the poetry of your unfolding. First, there must be a clearing away, a temenos of simplicity in which to dwell. So, temenos is a Greek word, which actually has no English equivalent, but it means a piece of ground or surrounding um, area adjacent to a temple, a sacred enclosure. So, strike a holy grove of silence where you can listen as you long to be heard, see as you long to be seen, recognize where you long to be relevant, needed, and necessary. Sink down into your estrangement and let the grief of your disappointment be the moisture that baptizes the seeds of your potential so we can finally break open. And as you're tending to your inner well, know that your work is part of a larger mission that is attempting through our combined experience to come into harmony. In other words, our individual well being is also the well being of the whole. Rather than thinking of the external world as the real reality, you begin to see that psyche and nature are intrinsic. There's a conversational relationship between the inner and the outer world, a dynamic reciprocity which can be strengthened by our tending to their coordinates. So I thought that this would be a perfect passage to read to you today because it speaks really to the heart of what I am, with the wonderful support of the Shift Network, offering in this Courting the Dream course. I use this word courting, courtship, because I want to recognize that there has been an estrangement that has happened in our personal lives, at the level of culture, and also through the ancestral lines that have brought us here to this point. And and so we need to make a courtship of that from which we have become estranged. And so this course is all about strengthening what we sometimes call the feminine, which is Jungian language. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is the realm. It's not a realm belonging to male or female. It's not gendered language, but it is just a word to describe that which has been subordinate for all of these generations. And we're talking about the dreams, we're talking about the intuition, we're talking about the inner knowing, but we're also talking about vision, our capacity for a visionary um, capability which can create the new world that we are longing to create. And so that's a lot. And I would love to receive some of your questions. I know tons of you actually wrote in with the most amazing questions. So we're going to have a super juicy conversation here today. And just a note, if you're going to ask some questions over Facebook, I won't be able to answer specific questions about your dreams at this point, though we will be doing that in every live class in Recording the Dream in our 7 weeks. And the reason for that is the way that we work with dreams in this way is to have an in-depth conversation. So there's no quick interpretations here. And if you trust me on this one, it'll be a more fulfilling path for everyone. So, Anne, I would love to hear some of the questions and to dig into some of these great topics.
Thanks so much, Toko-pa. So we'll spend the rest of this time together exploring questions for Toko-pa as we prepare for her upcoming course, Courting the Dream, and that begins January the 3rd. If you want to check out the webpage, we'd love to have you do so for this 7-week course. You'll find a link to register as well as details about the course. Please visit courtingthedreamcourse.com. COURTING, thedreamcourse.com, and you'll see a full description. Now let's get started with your questions. If you have a question for Toko-pa, I'd like you to type it into the space and I'll be happy to read it out for you. And yes, as Toko-pa said, we're thrilled to have gotten so many questions through the webcast. We'll start with one from the webcast from Paula. And she says, I can never remember my dreams. Is there a way that I would be able to do so?
Absolutely. So that's just a perfect question to start with because a lot of people believe that they don't dream because they are not remembering their dreams. And there's this misconception that either you are someone who dreams or you're not someone who dreams. But I'd like to dispel this myth altogether right at the start. Um, Dream work is a practice. And there are some very simple things that we can learn to improve our dream recall. And so I have spent some time gathering my very best tips for dream recall, and I've put them into a booklet, which is called the Dream Recovery Kit. And this will be included in your membership when you sign up for Courting the Dream. And in this kit, you will definitely have some tips for dream recall, but we're also going to address in that little booklet the different kinds of obstacles and blockages that may cause us to not remember our dreams. And some people even have the experience of being estranged from their dreams for traumatic reasons. And so there may have been an experience where you were made to feel like you shouldn't pay attention to your dreams, or there was material there that was disturbing, or that you felt some kind of invasion. We're going to talk about a bunch of these issues in this little booklet. So I think you'll receive that as soon as you, or at some point as you sign up for the course. Maybe Anne can clarify at which point you receive that, but that should get into the nitty gritty of how to help you remember your dreams better.
Great. So this is from Ray. What is your favorite nighttime ritual for diving deep into sacred dream space?
Beautiful. Well, I love to make sure that there is at least an hour before bedtime where there are no screens or devices, and the more gentle light or natural light as possible really helps to set those circadian rhythms in the body. And you know, if there's anything that is perseverating for me mentally, I will make a point of writing it down in my journal or talking to my partner about it, or even just examining it silently within to see if I can't let it go before bedtime. So it's a kind of that 10 minutes I was talking about, the clearing away of clutter so that I can receive the dreams.
That's great. Brooke is asking, what she says, thank you, Toko-pa, for your rich and tender, alive work. I want to work with my dreams, and I'm having more since reading your book of belonging. I'm finding when I think or talk about them, I move a bit out of the dreaming potency and aliveness in my body. Any wisdom for how to work with them without losing their felt visceral energy in my body?
Yeah, wow, what an amazing question. First of all, thank you so much. I love that your question shows that you're really exploring at a very subtle level. And so I really appreciate that. And I've included in this course quite a strong focus on somatic experiencing of the dream, which is to say, an embodied approach to dream work. So it can be quite easy to get into a mental place when we're working with our dreams. And so we have to practice at coming back into the body. One of the easiest ways to come back into the body, believe it or not, is to talk about the dream in present tense, as if the dream were happening to you right now. So if you're telling someone else a dream, you say, well, instead of saying, I dreamt that I came upon a dark house and I walked into the house and it seemed to do, you, instead of saying it like that, you would say, I dream I come upon this house and it has this quality of foreboding, you know, or whatever it is that your dream experience that you can feel in my saying that, how much more embodied you become in the dream. And we'll talk about some other practices of when we find ourselves getting into kind of an intellectual or mental headspace to come and check back in with the body and find out what sensations are presenting themselves and how they can be included in our experience of dream work. So thanks for that great question.
Okay, great. So we do want to presence that Toko-pa is on an island. She's in Canada, and we know that there are some sound challenges, mainly because we're on Facebook Live today. This isn't something we'll have with the course, so I just ask you to be patient. The content of this is really potent, but I want you to know it's not your connection, but that is the situation, so bear with us. Thank you. And I want to take you over to another question. This one, let's see, from our live Facebook. Mimi is asking, what do recurring dreams mean? Or what do you have to say for people that have recurring dreams, Toko-pa?
Ah, well, let me just acknowledge the poor audio. I apologize for that. We're actually having a very stormy day here on Salt Spring Island, and I was telling Anne earlier, I actually woke up to the sound of a falling tree cracking and booming outside my window. So yes, I apologize for that. I hope you can hear some, if not all of this. So recurring dreams. Recurring dreams happen when we have a recurring situation triggering a recurring response in waking life. And so there may be something in our environment which triggers a recurring response and thus puts us in a recurring situation in our dream time. So it's a little bit like being stuck in a loop. People who have experienced trauma often have recurring dreams. And the tendency is to think that all of these dreams are the same because they do have a similar piece in them. But the key for working with recurring dreams is actually to write them down in as much detail as possible because there will be some subtle details in those dreams that change from dream to dream. And it's those subtle details which are indicative of our evolving response to the trigger. And so we have to look at those details in order to amplify them, enlarge them, validate, and celebrate them as the small triumphs they are. Because when added together, they can show us how to move out of the recurring pattern. And so it's really important to notice the details in recurring dreams and the ways that they are different from each other.
Okay, this one doesn't have a name on it. It's from our webcast. I have not been recording my dreams for very long. In fact, I only have recently begun to pay attention to my dreams, and I only have one dream, a recent one, that I've fully transcribed. It was really powerful. Would it be appropriate for me to take this course, or do I have to have been actively engaged with my dream life for a long time?
Oh no, I mean you're absolutely welcome and I would say, the fact that you had such a powerful dream is indicative of the conversation your dream maker is wanting to have with you. And so, my hope is that this course can reach people at many different levels. I have people who study with me who are psychology professionals. I also have people who have never done anything like this before. And so it should feed you whatever level you're at. And congratulations on having such a powerful dream. I think it's a little bit like the more you tend to that garden, the more blossoming it will become. So I would encourage you to keep going and join us.
Thanks so much. Toko-pa, a little recommendation to move, if you are able, to a little bit closer to your microphone, if you can. That will help us with the audio. Thank you so much. And again, this is our just for this Q&A due to the Facebook Live and where Toko-pa is today with a lot of storms happening. So thank you for bearing with us. I know how rich her content is, as you can hear it, so just bear with us. Okay. Here's one. I dreamt something very strange, and I don't understand what it is. How can I return to the dream to know more about it so that I can understand it?
So you dreamt something very strange and you want to understand more about it. Well, this is where the process of courtship really becomes valuable because that is exactly what we're doing is learning how to approach the otherness that lives within our psyche. So as I was saying earlier, we are estranged from so many what I call refugee aspects of the self. So these are parts of ourselves that have been split off for various reasons. Perhaps they weren't validated in our family homes. Perhaps they are qualities that at the cultural level are not esteemed. Perhaps there was a kind of soul loss which happened through trauma, either intergenerationally or in our personal lives. Whatever the reasons are, we do become split off from those parts of ourselves. And so the work of courtship is learning to be curious about those parts, um, to notice what we do know about them, and to follow our curiosity to see if we can get them or invite them to reveal more of their concealed medicine to us. And so this courtship word is such a wonderful word because I think of it like um, courtship is circling something or someone that you love from a respectful distance and learning what they need, what they long for, and then trying to move your own life in response to that need. So you see, it's a somewhat mysterious process, but it's wonderful to feel when we have made progress with that otherness within, how the dreams themselves respond to that being approached. And so they do respond to us, and then we get to see over a series or a course of dreams the evolution of our symbols, of our mythological stories as well.
Thank you so much, Toko-pa. So if you're just joining us, we're here with Toko-pa Turner, and we're taking questions about our upcoming course, Courting the Dream, which begins Thursday, January the 3rd at noon Pacific. And please log on to courtingthedreamcourse.com to read all about the course and to register. And please feel free to type your questions in. We have a question from Beck over on Facebook Live. How can I ensure that I get into a deeper state of sleep? I usually spend 2 hours or less in deep sleep. The rest of my sleep is light. If I'm only in a light sleep state, do I dream? Because I can never recall any dreams, so I feel I'm not getting into a dream state.
Mm. Yes, sleep troubles can be a big hindrance to dreaming, and I know I periodically suffer from insomnia myself, and it's kind of torturous. So, light sleeping can have a similar feeling. I know that you don't quite feel like you're getting the deep enough rest that you need. Um, I, for myself, have found some herbal remedies that work for me, so I don't know if you have have explored that as an avenue. But listen, here's the thing. A lot of us think that we only dream during our deepest part of the sleep cycle. But I actually think this is untrue because I have, and maybe you've had the experience too, where I will take a nap, which is only, say, 15 to 20 minutes long, which is not long enough to get into the deepest part of a REM cycle, which requires, I think it's 70 or 90 minutes in total. I can't quite remember. And I have very vivid dreams. In fact, light sleeping is the perfect state for lucid dreaming. It's a little bit like if you think of an ocean, the deeper we are, the more numinous and unknown quality our dreams seem to take on. And then the higher we get to the surface, um, the um, the more lucid or awake we are within our dreams. So naps and light sleeping is the perfect jumping off point for lucid dreaming. And I will just take that one step further and suggest that we are dreaming all the time, even when we're awake. I believe there is a channel, which is the dreaming channel, which we can experience through the form of seeing our life with what the Jungian analyst and author Arnold Mindell calls second attention, which comes out of the Carlos Castaneda teachings. First attention is the ordinary awareness that we have every day. And second attention is that symbolic life. It is the mythic realm. It is the part of us which can perceive energy and the synchronicity and the symbolic nature of life. So I believe we're actually dreaming 24 hours a day.
Thanks so much for that. We had a couple of questions related to sleep challenges, a mother who breastfeeds and doesn't get much sleep. So I really appreciate your answer to that, Toko-pa. I think it's helpful to so many. Susan is asking, what are ways to respond to dreams through the arts?
Ooh, I love that question. Well, I have to say, that my own work with dreams over the last 20 years has evolved to really focus on somatic practices, and these have anything to do with being in the body. Dance, movement, the making of art and painting, anything that has a visceral, physical quality. I love to work with the land and the nature and the nature, the nature world and the elements. All of these things are incredibly powerful ways of working with dreams, perhaps even more powerful than talk and writing. So, I've had I remember this one dreamer who came to me once, and she had this dream, and in the dream there was this image of a painting, and the painting had this shop of red paint. And that paint was in great contrast to the rest of the dream, which had this very mundane quality to it, a kind of grind. And so I just had this instinct at the time to suggest to her that instead of talking about the dream, that she go straight to the paint and find herself a canvas and take that particular color red if she could find it and just see what happens when she played with this paint. Well, I'll tell you, her whole life changed after this experience. As it turned out, painting was something she was meant to be doing with her life. And she made a decision she just couldn't stop painting. And eventually she had this whole body of work. And that led her to enter into an art school. And when she was at the art school, she met the love of her life, who was also an artist. And they ended up going on and living a very different life than the one she had been living when she brought this dream to be seen. So, so there's something about really representing the dream in its prima materia, in its raw form, as best we can, without analyzing it. And to tell you the truth, I stay away from the words analyze and interpret. I hardly ever use those words because the dream is an expression in and of itself. And anything we can do to embody the visceral quality of that dream, the closer we are going to move into alignment with its medicine.
Hmm. Thank you so much, Toko-pa. Uh, Brian over on the webcast asked, how can I have dreams of illumination and inspiration instead of the usual mundane dreams about daily life?
Aha! I love this question because, it's I have a lot of people who say to me, my dreams are boring. They don't have any, I see other people having these magical, mysterious dreams. And, I just have these boring dreams about my job or about my day-to-day life. And I like to say, you have to love the dream you're given. You have to love the dream you're given. And that's the only way that you can enrich that soil in order for it to blossom and grow new expressions. And so, this judgment that your dreams are mundane is is really a trick that the rational mind is playing on you to disqualify and dismiss the dreams you're receiving. I have never in my life met a dream that is mundane. I really haven't, and I have heard thousands of dreams. That it's just our initial perception, which is stopping us from having a relationship with the dream that we have been given. There's a very funny thing that happens. We'll have a dream and we'll say, "Oh, that was just a mundane dream, and it wasn't about anything important." And then later in the day, we'll reflect. We'll maybe have a recall of that same dream, and we'll be like, "Whoa, actually, that raven was talking to me." It's a very funny thing. The mind plays tricks on us and casts this gray cloud of illusion, which causes us to dismiss our dreams. And we have to penetrate that impulse to dismiss them and really venerate the dream we have been given. And when we do that, they naturally respond to us. It's a lot like if you had a lover and you said to that lover, you're kind of boring and I don't really want, you don't have anything interesting to say to me, and you just kind of ignore them, well, eventually they're going to recede and they're going to go away and they're not going to be very colorful at all. But if we tell them how beautiful they are, how meaningful and how unique and how mysterious and surprising and amazing, then they're just going to blossom into the most luscious, beloved. So it's the same with our dreams.
Thanks for that reminder, Toko-pa. Thanks. How can I encourage recall? I dream a lot, but usually have very little recall of them.
Right. Okay. So we talked about this right at the top of our Facebook Live today. And just a reminder that when you sign up for the course, I have put as one of the bonuses that we are giving you, I put a book together, a little booklet, which has my best tips for remembering your dreams. And once again, I just want to reiterate, it's a practice. And I promise you that if you follow my tips for dream recall, which are incredibly simple, that you will be dreaming in a week. And I know that's a big guarantee, but I've actually never had it fail. So, but the trick is you have to earnestly follow the steps. And the biggest step in my tips is that even if you receive but a fragment of a dream, you have to venerate it. You have to write it down. You have to honor it by writing it down. The dreams love to be written down, and there's no way around it. Even if you're recording with a voice recorder, if that's your preference, then transcribing that recording onto the page. This is really the key. And so, if you have just a fragment, don't dismiss it. Just like we were talking previously, and Brian's question, that we have to acknowledge it, and that's the starting point. And then it'll just be like it'll be a floodgate. You'll receive more and more, and then you'll be asking me, how do I deal with too much dream material? And I speak to that in my book, is my little booklet that I'm offering as part of the course as well.
Thanks so much, Toko-pa. We were getting lots of questions about that, so it was wonderful to have you come back to that question in even a new way. Thank you. So Vic is asking, how will your Dream Workshop series address the critical relationship between personal and global mythology and their relationship to magic and manifestation in the real world?
Oh, awesome question. You guys are incredible. I love these questions. And also, it's a very big question. So, this is the way that I feel about that. Dreaming is really nature, naturing through us. I don't believe this business, that dreams are the product of the mind. Um, Certainly, our minds have an influence because we perceive the events of our lives through the lens of our own perception. But I believe there is something greater. I know there's something greater, which is pushing the blood into our veins, which is coursing these dreams through us. And I believe that something greater is nature. And so for me, the distinction between what's happening at a global level and what is happening in our personal lives somewhat falls away when we have this perspective. When we come together in dream sharing groups, we have the most amazing experience of ourselves as an ecosystem. And I don't mean this as a metaphor, I mean quite literally that we are a dreaming ecosystem and that the earth dreaming is dreaming through us. Why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be? You know, everything is inclined towards healing and wholeness and harmony in the natural world, and we are part of that nature. It's just that we have forgotten how to be in conversation with that nature. And so when we are following the indigenous rhythm of our own souls, we are at the same time moving our lives not only into personal belonging in our lives, but into that the healing of that greater fracturedness of our culture. And so this is a very complex topic, and I'm just so glad you asked it, Vic, because I really don't think there's a more important conversation to be having. And I think a lot of people are under the impression that when we turn to the inner life, when we turn towards our dreams, that it's a little like navel gazing, right? It's like, well, why, aren't you active on the front lines of so and so cause of which there are, too many to name? Well, I believe that there is no greater activism than healing the splits at the level of self. Because when we do that, when we heal our inner biases, our inner racism, our inner tribalism and nationalism, when we heal our inner suppression and denigration of the wilderness within, that it not only carries out into a symmetry in our personal spheres, but into the collective consciousness at large. Anything that has been innovated or created in the history of life began first at the level of imagination.
Thanks so much, Toko-pa. And thank you, everyone, for so many wonderful questions today. Really smart questions. So we have some time for more of these questions of yours. But before I take those, I want to give a few details about courting the dream. It's going to be such an inspiring 7 weeks under Toko-pa's guidance, where you'll really receive the medicine of your dreams through your body and learn to apply this wisdom to your everyday life. So our 7-week course takes place on Thursdays at noon Pacific, starting January the 3rd. And if for any reason you're unable to join the live call, you're not going to miss the teachings. You can receive the audio and replays and transcripts and all the handouts through your course homepage, which is, I call it your virtual classroom. So we make it really easy for you to take the course in your own time. We also offer a no-risk money-back guarantee for our courses, giving you a full 2 weeks, in this case until January 17th, to make sure that you absolutely love the course. And as an added option, we have a wonderful Facebook community group that is just for the participants in this course. You stay connected to one another. You can share your experiences there. So everyone who registers receives the Courting the Dream bonus collection. These are wonderful permanent bonuses for everyone who registers. It includes the Dream Work and Belonging, which is an audio dialogue with Toko-pa, and this is hosted by Susan Audrey. We also have the Dream Recovery Kit that Toko-pa has mentioned a couple of times today. It's tips for dream recall and dream incubation and overcoming blocks. This is a PDF guide from Toko-pa. Also, Courting the Dream, a guide to understanding the dream structure with the key elements and the common themes. This is another PDF by Toko-pa. And Dreaming Together, how to start and sustain a dream group. This is a PDF guide for you to begin your own dream group. And for those of you that are really inspired to register tonight, before midnight Pacific, tonight, the 20th of December, you'll receive this special bonus. This is a dream journal worksheet, tips for writing the ephemeral and writing prompts. This is also a PDF. Toko-pa, can you tell us just a bit about that bonus, the dream journal worksheet?
Absolutely. I think one of the big obstacles that people feel is how to capture the ephemeral. You know, we have these dreams and they're so mystical and ambiguous and shifting and unusual that it can be very difficult to capture that. And there can be this sense of a flatness that happens when we try to write them down. So in this booklet, I am including some uh, prompts, giving you some prompts for how to write the dream down. And this will just sort of show you how to get the most out of the description of your dream. It will also teach you some ways to structure your dream journal so that you can not only use it as a place to record, but that you can uh, refer back to it in a way that's functional and not just a part of all the mess of the rest of our writing when we're journaling, folks. So, yeah, so there's a few other things, some writing prompts, some tips for how to write down your dream and ways to structure your dream journal that I hope will be really helpful for helping to capture that ephemeral quality of our dreams.
Thanks, Toko-pa. Rochelle over on Facebook Live says, I just love your book. I've found it to be so powerful. And she says, I often will analyze, there's that analyze word again, my dreams on my own. Do you rely solely or recommend we rely solely on intuition or other resources?
Oh, there are lots and lots of tools that we're going to be touching on this week, and so we there's this combination of I would say a philosophy that I would like to convey to you, which is this process of courtship, which are like pillars that we need to keep touching into when we're working with a dream. But then there is also scholarship, learning the structure, the elements, the way to follow the energy of the dream and follow the unfolding of the dream. So we're going to be learning tons of tools like this, and and definitely giving you some tools for how to work on your own with your dreams. I hope when you come away from this 7 weeks that you'll have so much new information and ideas and perspectives which will help you approach your own dreams. But I also, in the 7th week of this course, I'm going to focus on dreaming community because I really believe that the dreams are meant to be shared, that they contain medicine not only for our personal lives, but teachings for our family, for our community, for our tribe. And so, my hope is that at the end of this 7 weeks, you don't just go away from the course thinking, oh, I had another online course and now I'm no longer part of that community. And there's a grief that can go with that. I've had that experience myself. But I want to give you some tools for creating and sustaining community around dream sharing so that you're not alone. Because I think there's so much more richness that can be received from the tapestry of our togetherness when working on a dream.
Thanks for that, Toko-pa. Wendy says, I've been writing my dreams and working with my therapist for many years now, and just wondering how to take this dream work to a deeper, richer level. I've used art, drawing as well as painting, to work with specific symbols as well as other methods, yet feel stuck in my process. And she says, thank you so much for your insight.
Oh my goodness. Can I just say that I am so excited to gather with everyone for this course? What an amazing quality of intelligence and heartfeltness in this community already. So I'm really excited about us all getting to know each other more. It's going to be great fun. So feeling stuck, I'd love to have a conversation with you, Rochelle, about where exactly you're feeling stuck because it sounds like you're doing all the good things. I am glad that you brought up ritual because we are going to focus an entire week of this course on how to strengthen that reciprocity with the unseen world through ritual and other acts that we can undertake to, um, let's say, concretize our relationship with the holies. And so it's hard for me to say exactly where you're feeling stuck, but I wonder if it's in the dreams themselves, whether there's something that you just need some support with. You just need, sometimes when we work on dreams by ourselves, we don't always see in our blind spots. Dreams often emanate from our blind spots because they come from the unconscious. And it's like trying to scratch that place in your back that you can't quite reach. But then when you are in community or when you're in relationship with someone who looks at things in a different way than you, it can just constellate a new way of thinking, of understanding. So I'm hopeful that the community that we create might be able to provide that for you. And if not, if that's not the piece, because I know you're working with a therapist already, then maybe it is this ritual piece which can help to strengthen the conversation you're having with your dreams.
Great. So Robin's asking, what about recurring symbols, but not the same dream, but the recurring symbols?
Mm. Yeah, well, isn't this amazing? There are some figures or images or animals that keep reappearing for us. And like any image that arises in our dreams, we have to go through this courtship process to understand what medicine it has to offer us. Now, if it is something that is essentially mysterious, then it may not reveal itself in one sitting. And part of the work is getting comfortable with approaching at a respectful pace, right? So it's like imagine if you met a wild animal in the forest. You don't say, this fox means I am stealthy and or that that I should be stealthy and wily. You don't say that, which is a kind of objectification, really, of the living image which is in your dream. But instead, you say, wow, and you have a proper moment of awe as you look at the fox and the fox looks at you and you're affected by your relationship with them. And maybe you become more curious about each other and you circle in closer. And maybe when the symbol returns to you, you circle in a little closer and you notice, how has the environment of the dream changed? And what does that have to say about the area of my soul that I am being called to work with? There are some, especially animal helpers, which just continue to unpack their wisdom every time they visit with us. And this is a good thing because it means we are in a living dialogue, a living relationship with our dreams, instead of trying to reduce the images or players in our dreams to static definitions, which is why we have all of these dream dictionaries. And for the most part, they're rubbish. Occasionally, you find a dream dictionary which poses questions instead. And for me, that is the smarter emphasis, is on our curiosity so that we can always be learning more.
Sarah is asking, do you look at all aspects of a dream as parts of yourself, or do you use a different approach?
Great question. Well, this topic that we were touching on earlier with Brian's question applies to this question as well, because I believe that a dream can be taken on many levels at once. And this requires a kind of um, spiritual maturity because we are able to hold the ambiguity of a bothness. For instance, a dream certainly might be speaking to aspects of ourselves, but they might also be speaking objectively to a situation that we are in waking life. And they can very easily occupy the same space. They might also be speaking to an issue that we're dealing with at the level of the collective. So, in my approach to dreams, we try to live with this ambiguity with greater levels of maturity. And so we go through each of those levels and we check, does this speak to an objective situation? And we try it on. And if it resonates, we might decide to go deeper and say, well, does this apply to a psychodynamic or internal situation, an internal dynamic aspects of the self? And we may say, actually, yes, it does also apply. And then we might ask, how does this apply to a global dynamic? And we may see it there as well. So I believe that dreams they are so genius and so intricate, and it's possible that there are even more. It's probable that there are even more dimensions that I am not skilled enough at to even mention here. So my hope is just always be in a beginner's mind where, like the Japanese talk about, where we are always, the masterfulness is really in allowing ourselves to be constantly curious and to constantly be asking those questions.
Mm. I really appreciate that, Toko-pa, how you approach all these questions with such wonder and curiosity. So thank you for that. We're coming to the end of our time, but I would love to hear, as you look forward to this course that's happening starting next month, what are you most looking forward to sharing in this particular course with your students?
Well, I have a lot of pieces that I want to convey to you, and I know that they will resonate with the deep parts of yourself that already know what you know. But I am most excited, as I always am, about the community that we're going to create. Because whenever we gather together in any kind of dream sharing circle. It's really the circle itself which becomes our teacher. And this is such an empowering way to be in a spiritual practice because it's really the constellation of our togetherness which creates the magic. And so I think in 4 of the 7, or maybe 5 of the 7 weeks, we are planning to work on actual dreams together. And that is the really exciting part, at least from my perspective, because I'm very used to teaching these tools. But it's when the dream comes through into our midst, and we're able to work with these tools in a dynamic process, and we get to encounter the mystery of these dreams. And it's amazing because even if one person shares a dream, it has medicine for all of us when we witness and present it. So that's the piece that I'm most excited to collaborate with you.
Mhm. Thank you so much, Toko-pa. Well, it's just been a great hour. So many wonderful questions, so many inspired questions from all of our viewers today. So thank you, everyone who joined us, and thank you to those of you that took the time to post your questions and share them. Courting the Dream starts Thursday, January the 3rd. So again, please visit courtingthedreamcourse.com, and you can learn all about the course as well as register. I'm going to pass it over to you, Toko-pa, for any final words to our listeners.
Well, I just want to give thanks to you, Anne, and to the Shift Network for hosting this amazing event. It's really so timely, I think, for all of us. For me, that I'm able to have a wonderful venue in which to disseminate these tools. But also, I feel there's something very propitious about this timing and beginning the new year outright by pulling back from all of that externalization and busyness and really tending to the inner well. So thank you so much. I also want to give thanks to all of you who have tuned in today and for all your incredible questions. It made for a very juicy and depthful conversation, and I'm sure that that's indicative of what our 7 weeks will be like. So much love to you. Happy holy days, and we'll see you very soon.
Hmm. Thanks so much, Toko-pa. The honor is really all of ours to be producing this course with you. And thanks everyone again for joining us. On behalf of all of us here at the Shift Network, I wish you well. And we look forward to having you on this course or on one in the future. Be well.